I could begin this story in so many ways, but there's one memory that never leaves me: the sound of that wooden box opening. It might sound strange to say this, but that sound was capable of changing everything I believed about myself, about my family, about the world that surrounded me. I grew up hearing that some things must remain silent, kept under lock and key, as if revealing the truth were a sin. And for a long time, I obeyed that rule, until one day, I couldn't anymore. Back then, I lived in a simple house, with peeling walls and windows that creaked every time the wind hit harder. To any neighbor looking from outside, it seemed like just a common home, like so many others. But for me, every room hid secrets. My childhood was made of silences, of glances that turned away, of questions that never received answers. And even as a child, I already felt that something was out of place, a shadow that lurked around, but that no one dared to face head-on. I remember my mother always busy, running from one side to the other, as if work were the perfect excuse not to notice what was happening around her. My father, in turn, seemed to carry an invisible weight, a seriousness that distanced him from any display of affection. I felt alone, even surrounded by people. Maybe that's why I learned to observe details, to store in my memory small signs that, later, would make perfect sense. The secret began to reveal itself on a late afternoon, when I found by chance that wooden box on top of the wardrobe. It was old, covered in dust, but it carried a rusty padlock that, in my childish curiosity, seemed to guard treasures. I didn't know it, but that object would be the key to a painful and transformative discovery. I spent days thinking about it, imagining what was inside, and every time I heard the jingling of my father's keys, I felt my heart race, as if it were forbidden even to dream of knowing. Time passed, and with it came small clues, loose phrases at lunch, torn notes forgotten in the trash, exchanged glances that carried more than simple fatigue. I didn't understand everything, but I felt something was wrong. It was as if my entire life were built on quicksand. Just one wrong step, and everything would sink. There were nights when I would lie down and keep imagining what would happen if someone finally told the truth. Would I have the courage to hear it? Would I be able to face my own fears? I was still very young, but something inside me said that one day I would have to face that head on. And it was precisely that feeling that kept me alert, waiting for the right moment. When I finally had the chance to open the box, my hands were shaking so much I could barely turn the key. The sound of the padlock coming loose echoed inside me as if it were the crack of a chain breaking. Inside there wasn't gold, nor happy family photos as I had imagined. There were papers, old letters, documents yellowed by time, and every word I read seemed to tear a piece of my story, as if I had lived until then a carefully constructed lie. It was at that moment I realized my life wasn't what I thought it was. There was a hidden secret, a suffocated truth that would change everything forever. The ground disappeared from under my feet. I sat in the corner of the room and cried, not only from the pain of what I was discovering, but because I understood that nothing I had lived until then could be seen the same way. And this is where I need to open my heart to you who are listening to me. Maybe you also carry a similar feeling, as if there were something in your life that was never explained, a detail that insists on returning to your thoughts. Maybe you've already felt that your family hid truths, that some stories weren't told as they should have been. If you've been through this, you'll understand what I felt. And if you haven't yet, know this: secrets have the power to shape who we are, even when we don't know their content. But don't think the story ends here. Actually, it was at that moment that it truly began. The box was open, the secret was before me, but the biggest battle was still to come. What to do with this truth? Keep it once more as my parents had done, or finally expose everything, running the risk of tearing down my family's image? I was just a young person, but I carried in my hands the weight of a decision that would change everyone's future. And this is where I invite you. Before continuing, leave in the comments if you've lived through something similar, if you've discovered a truth that transformed your life. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the continuation of this story, and leave a like, because that really helps to bring messages like this to more people who might be needing to hear them. The weight of that discovery kept hammering in my mind like a clock without hands. I read and reread those old letters, trying to understand every detail, every word scribbled in haste, every date marked with such care. The feeling was that I had opened not just a box, but a portal to a past that everyone made sure to erase. The first lines were already enough to leave me groundless. My surname, my family's name. Everything I carried as identity seemed suddenly to dissolve before my eyes. While holding those papers, I felt a mixture of anger and relief. Anger because they had hidden something so important from me, and relief because finally, what I had always felt, that inexplicable emptiness, that distrust that wouldn't leave me in peace, had found an explanation. The secret had a name, had a face, had a story. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't just a distrustful daughter. I was someone who had been deceived. The letters revealed conversations between people I barely knew, mentioned secret meetings, decisions made without me having the slightest chance to have an opinion. There it was written, clearly, that the truth about who I was had been kept as if it were a curse. And the worst part? That involved not only my parents, but other family members, people I had always respected and trusted. It was as if suddenly I had to look at every familiar face and ask, "Who are you really? What else are you hiding from me?" I spent days trying to digest all of that. I kept the box under the bed, but I couldn't sleep peacefully. Every time I closed my eyes, the words came to my mind like a silent scream. I knew that, from that moment on, nothing could be the same as before. Pretending I didn't know would be like betraying myself. And at the same time, telling everything would be like opening a wound that might never heal. I remember the first time I tried to confront my mother. I sat at the breakfast table, looked right into her eyes, and asked, "Do you have something to tell me?" Her silence was deafening. The way she looked away, how she stirred the spoon in her coffee without taking a single sip, already said more than any words. At that moment, I realized she knew. She always knew, and chose to remain silent. It was at that moment my heart split in two. One part wanted to scream, demand explanations, throw all the pain I felt onto her. The other part, however, just wanted to hug her, understand the reasons, believe that the silence was somehow an attempt to protect me, because sometimes love also makes mistakes, and makes them badly. But I could no longer live with that doubt. I decided to look for my father. He always had that rigid posture, as if nothing in the world could shake him. But when I showed him the letters, I noticed something I never thought I would see. His teary eyes, heavy breathing, a discreet tremor in his hands. For the first time, my father didn't seem invincible. He seemed just human, and that's when he admitted, with a choked voice, "Yes, it's true, but we did this because we believed it was for the best." That phrase echoed like thunder. The best? The best for whom? For them, who lived peacefully with the lie? Or for me, who grew up lost, trying to understand why there was always a missing piece in my own story? There was no answer capable of erasing the pain. It was from that moment that I began to realize that the secret wasn't just about me. It was about all of us. Every family member had built a convenient version of the truth, and everyone somehow decided to leave me out. I felt betrayed, but I also felt a strange impulse. Maybe it was my mission to break this cycle, to bring to light what they tried to hide. And it was then that something changed inside me. I stopped being just the scared girl who found a dusty box and became someone determined to rescue her own story. I began to investigate more, look for clues, talk to people who could confirm or deny what was written on those pages. Every conversation, every fragment I found led me to a mixture of pain and strength. It was as if with each discovery, I lost a little innocence, but gained more courage. I needed to decide, continue carrying this truth alone, or share the weight with the world. And it was in this dilemma that I realized the power of choice. Because secrets can destroy us, but they can also be the spark that ignites transformation. And you who are listening to me now, have you lived through something similar? Have you discovered a truth that changed the way you see your own life? Write here in the comments, because I really want to know if this feeling is just mine, or if you've also felt the ground disappear under your feet. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because there's still much to share, and the most intense part of this story is yet to come. That night when I heard my father admit the truth never left my memory. The air seemed heavier inside the house, as if even the walls had heard the confession. I locked myself in the room, leaned my back against the door, and stayed there, sitting on the floor, trying to breathe. No matter how much I tried to organize my thoughts, everything seemed like an endless storm. And in the middle of this chaos, one question hammered: what would I do with this truth now? The next day I woke up different. I could no longer pretend that nothing had happened. There was a new strength inside me, an almost urgent need to look into the eyes of each family member and demand explanations. I gathered courage and asked for a conversation. I remember the small living room, Everyone sitting around the table, uncomfortable glances, as if everyone knew that inevitable moment had arrived. I took the wooden box and placed it on the table. The sound it made when it touched the wood echoed through the environment, bringing forth an almost suffocating silence. I looked at each of them and said, "I already know everything. Now I want to hear it from you." It was as if a dam had burst. Words began to come out, one over the other. Attempts to justify, to minimize, to blame old decisions. My mother cried. My father tried to stay firm, but his voice betrayed his fragility. Uncles, grandparents, each one had a version, a reason, an excuse. And in the middle of this tangle of voices, I realized the true essence of that secret. It wasn't just a kept lie. It was a network of complicit silences, of shared fears, of cowardices camouflaged in supposed good intentions. With each phrase, my indignation grew. It wasn't just what they had hidden from me. It was the fact that they had decided for me, as if I didn't have the right to know my own story. I felt small, diminished, but at the same time taken by a courage I had never felt before. Then, I hit the table hard and said, "Enough. I will not carry this lie forward. If you don't have the courage to tell the truth, I do." The silence that followed was more deafening than any scream. My eyes burned, my chest hurt, but I knew that was the decisive moment. There was no going back. If I stayed quiet now, I would become part of the same cycle of omissions that hurt me. But if I spoke, I ran the risk of pushing away people I loved. That's when I realized, secrets have this power. They don't just hide truths, but also imprison those who try to protect them. And I was already tired of living imprisoned. I took a deep breath, faced my mother and father, and said, "I'm going to tell, to whoever is necessary. I deserve to live in peace." The reaction was immediate. Some tried to convince me otherwise, saying I wouldn't understand the consequences, that it would be too much weight. Others looked at me with a mixture of fear and respect, as if they finally saw in me a strength they never imagined existed. And at that moment, even shaken, I realized I had taken control of my own story. In the days that followed, the consequences began to unfold. People distanced themselves, old friendships broke, phone calls stopped happening, but there was also something unexpected. I found support in places I never imagined. People outside the family, neighbors, even distant acquaintances who heard my story and said, "You were brave. I wish I had done the same in my past." And it was in this unexpected support that I found strength to continue. I was no longer just someone who discovered a secret. I was someone who transformed that secret into voice, into courage, into fight. And in a way, I realized that my life had gained a greater purpose. But don't think it was easy. There were nights when I cried until I fell asleep, days when I thought about giving up, moments when I wondered if I had made the right choice. The pain of losing trust in people so close was a wound that took time to heal. And still, deep down, I knew I could no longer live in a lie. And maybe that's the real turning point, when the pain of hiding becomes greater than the fear of revealing. When we understand that truth, no matter how hard it may be, liberates. If you've come this far with me, I want to ask you, have you ever had to make a decision that changed the course of your life? Have you ever had to choose between remaining silent or risking everything for the truth? Write here in the comments, because your story can also help other people find courage. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like, because the next chapter of this story will show how the secret not only changed my present, but redefined my entire future. After so many poorly slept nights, of hidden tears and heavy silences, time showed me that truth has a force that no one can control. It might be muffled for a period, it can be hidden in boxes, it can be filed away in memories, but one day, sooner or later, it finds a way to reveal itself. And with me, it was no different. The secret I found in that wooden box didn't just transform my life, but also revealed the fragility of everyone around me. And, curiously, it was precisely that fragility that opened space for my strength to be born. Throughout the following months, I had to face the consequences of the choice I made. There were those who never spoke to me again. People who once hugged me and called me daughter, niece, granddaughter, decided that the weight of truth was more unbearable than the weight of lies. And as painful as it was, I learned to accept that not everyone has the courage to face what they preferred to hide. But at the same time, I saw a new family born around me, made of friends, neighbors, people I met in moments of vulnerability, and who became true support. It was there that I learned that family isn't just blood ties, but also ties of truth, of affection, and of choice. And it was in this process that I found myself facing the greatest learning of my life. Freedom doesn't come just from telling the truth, but from living the truth. Carrying a lie would never again be an option, and I wanted every step of mine to be light, without the weight of masks. I began to tell my story in conversation circles, in small meetings, then in larger lectures. At first, my voice trembled, but soon I realized that every time I spoke, someone in the audience also recognized themselves. Someone also carried a secret that suffocated them, and in those glances of identification, I found meaning. The pain that once seemed unbearable was transforming into fuel. Every time someone told me, "Thank you for speaking, you gave me courage," I felt that the wound inside me healed a little more. I discovered that truth doesn't destroy when it's lived with honesty. It reconstructs, it repositions, it gives us back the chance to be who we really are. Of course, it wasn't easy to rebuild my relationship with my parents. For a long time, we could barely exchange words without tears coming. There were resentments on both sides. Them for me having revealed the secret, me for them having hidden it from me for so long. But gradually, between silences and attempts, we found a new way to be together. Not the same as before, that would never exist again, but a different one, maybe more real, maybe more human. And today, when I look back, I realize that wooden box wasn't just a forgotten object. It was like a metaphor for my life, an old structure, heavy, full of rust, but that kept inside something that needed to come out so I could be whole. If I hadn't had the courage to open it, maybe I would still be living a story that wasn't mine. That's why I tell you, with all sincerity, don't be afraid of the truth. No matter how hard, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how much it seems capable of destroying what you know, it always brings with it the possibility of reconstruction. And believe me, living reconstructed is much better than living imprisoned. Today, I breathe relieved. The secret that once suffocated me is now part of my journey, no longer as an open wound, but as a scar that reminds me where I came from and where I don't want to return. I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to continue even when fear screams louder. And if you're listening to my story until here, I want to look through this screen and tell you, maybe there exists inside you a secret that needs to be faced. Maybe you carry something that, deep down, you know needs to be said. Maybe your life is also waiting for this liberation. I don't know what your story is, but I know that no one deserves to live in invisible chains. So I invite you, share in the comments if this story touched you. If you've also discovered something that changed your path, subscribe to the channel, because this space is precisely for us to transform pains into learnings, secrets into courage, tears into strength. Leave a like, because this way you help this message reach more people who maybe, at this exact moment, are needing a word of hope. My story began with a forgotten box, a sound of a padlock coming loose, and a flood of words that changed everything. But in the end, I realized it wasn't the secret that changed my entire life. It was my decision to face it, and it's that decision that, truly, made me free. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you in our next story.